start of the century or so, Dr. Richard Sander, when he was the athletic director at Virginia Commonwealth, gave a basketball coach named Jeff Capel his first head coaching job. He's now doing pretty well. He's at Pitt. They were 0-14 in the ACC last year. Now they're 6-0 in his first season. He also did pretty well with this hire. Steve Forbes, who has ETSU at 4-2 and perennial 20-odd game winner in the Southern Conference. He joins me today. This was a week, I guess I got to hand it to you. Right now, ETSU, instead of finishing slow, they're starting slow and finishing strong, and this allowed you to defeat Sam Houston State and Chicago State this week. But I don't know. I mean, can there be anything you can put your finger on some of the inconsistencies why this team can look so bad in one half and so good in another?
Yeah, I wish I had the exact answer for that. I guess a lot would have to be that, we've got a lot of new guys and some of them still trying to kind of find their way a little bit, but no excuses. I mean, Chicago State came out and played a 2-3 zone. It wasn't very aggressive, and quite frankly, we missed shots that we cannot afford to miss. I mean, I talked to the team at halftime. I said, I couldn't imagine getting those any more wide open than playing a game of horse. You got to make them, and we did in the second half when we played some better defense. I thought against Sam Houston, I was a little worried about the game. I watched them play Georgia tough, Clemson tough. And they came out and put us on our heels early, and we hurt ourselves. Going back and watching the film, on the first 3 possessions, we missed shots right around the rim, which could have kept them, at bay. And we missed, and they came down and shot an incredibly high percentage. Some of that can be attributed to us probably not defending very well, but some of it we did, and they just cut some really tough shots. So, we got on our heels quickly, and they took it to us, but I got to give our guys credit. In the second half against them, we locked them down and guarded. And the maturity part of our team was we played a lot better defense away from our bench in the second half. A lot of times teams play pretty good defense in the first half because they're right in front of the bench. You can help them, talk to them, coach them. But in the second half, they're on their own on the other end. And we've struggled in that department a little bit in the last 3 or 4 games, and I thought we took a step forward on Tuesday night when we held them to 31% defensive field goal percentage the second half, and that got us back in the game, and then we started making some shots and went from 18 down to 17 up. I don't know. In all my years of coaching, I don't know if I've ever been a part of a game that had that big of a swing, but it was a huge swing.
I thought that, if you go back and look at the records, and in a year, it'll look like, 25-point victory against Chicago State. What was it, 77-63 against Sam Houston State. These are impressive victories. It's not going to look like, that there were these in-game struggles there. But taking you back to Chicago State, or even for that matter, Sam Houston State, I going from memory, I believe the number was from the outside. In the first half, 3-point shooting, it was 3 of 15 against the Bearcats. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, and then 7 of 11 in the second half. Is that any better example of live by the 3, die by the 3?
No, because we don't do that.
Okay.
The majority of a lot of our shots come in the paint. It's the reason why those guys are getting those shots because we have 2 really good post players.
Sure.
And Jerome and Malad attract a lot of attention, and so we throw the ball inside a ton. It's just those guys are really good passers, and if they're getting double teamed or if the guards are digging on them hard, which most every team's going to do, that's going to create open shots for those guys, and that's why. I was disappointed because, those guys had all been recruited to be, had shot the ball very well before they came here. And I told them coming here, that was the recruiting pitch, was that we got really good post players.
I've been very impressed with what I've seen with Armas, especially defensively. You're really controlling the offensive boards. I've got analytics here. against North Dakota State, and it's as if you've got a 2-1 advantage against North Dakota State, they say, on getting offensive rebounding in this early point in the season. Is this, I guess, do I attribute it to you? I mean, is this the box-out strategy of Steve Forbes here, getting these offensive rebounds, or what's the key?
Not at all. I mean, I think one thing is defensive rebounding win championships. That's something that we stress. But truthfully, in my experience as a coach, people that are really good rebounders, it's an innate ability to chase the ball and go get it with two hands. And Jerome and a lot of them are really good at chasing the ball outside their area. You know, they get after the ball, they play hard. Now, part of it might be because we play pretty hard, and those guys have an ability to go get it, and it's just something inside of them. And the other thing too is for offensive rebounding is taking shots within the system. Do that, when the shots are coming from, you also know where the rebounds are going to be, and so I think that helps them a little bit too. But those guys just have that God-given ability to go get the ball.
I've really been impressed with Armas from what I've seen, both last year and this year defensively. Even in Freedom Hall this week, I mean, just getting back. It looks like sometimes, oh gosh, they might have a chance at a fast break or an open lane. Boom, there's Armas at the last minute. I mean, almost like putting down the toll bridge, if you will. And what looked to be an open lane is suddenly now, a failed attempt to score coming down the court and all this. By the way, I know that after the ballgame you mentioned that your brother and North Dakota State's football coach actually were college roommates, and that you've known some people at North Dakota State for some time. What was this college? Did your brother play football? Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, my brother was the first team All-State football player, as I was my senior year, and my brother played at Northern Iowa with Chris Kleinman. They were not just roommates, they were teammates. And Daryl Mudra recruited them there to play football, and then Terry Allen took over. And so Chris is from Cedar Rapids, and my brother and I are from Lone Tree, which they're only about 30 miles apart. And so my brother and Chris obviously have been friends for, a long time. And I don't know Chris as well as my brother. I'm very aware of him going to watch my brother play, and then Chris and I actually share the same agent. I don't think my agent has but one or two football guys, but he happens to have Chris Kleinman, so we got some ties there. And I made a funny, I tried to, a little tongue in cheek on Twitter about the bowl selection, the playoff selection committee screwed up. They should have brought NDSU here. We could have had some doubleheader. But I don't think that's probably going to happen. And they got a good program. Traditionally, North Dakota State has been not only good in football, but also good in basketball. And they have a good thing going there.
Well, I can say this. I think that Randy Sanders would like to play North Dakota State because that would mean that he would defeat Jacksonville State and, for that matter, Maine, and advance in the college football playoff. As daunting as the Bison, are, and defeating Big Ten schools, it seems, or Big 12 schools every year, and certainly putting Carson Wentz on the Philadelphia Eagles. We're talking to Steve Forbes, ETSU, playing North Dakota State at Freedom Hall at 4 p.m. By the way, is there any official thing where you go to the basketball game and then somewhere you can watch the football game? Is ETSU doing anything of a promotion like that?
I think Wild Wings.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Downtown Johnson City, I think they're having a watch party.
Okay.
And that's where I think a lot of fans will be congregating. The timing of it, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when it looked like we were going to make the playoffs. That obviously if we had a home game, we were going to have to change our game time to at night. So once we went on the road, we could keep it the same. And we tip it at 4. We'll be done in plenty of time to get to where you want to get to watch the game. And hopefully that's what people will want to do. To get a little tired of shopping on Saturday tomorrow and come watch us play.
And now, let me go to this basketball game, and the Bison are 2-3. I mean, it's a game you're going to be favored in. but they do seem to have a very diverse scoring lineup, if you will. And one guy that I think you got to keep an eye out is a guy named Rocky Cruiser. We've been talking about the rebounding advantage that you have. This is a 6'10", 245-pound guy. He's averaging 11 points a game and all this. How do you think your team stacks up against Rocky Cruiser?
Well, I think he's a really good player, and he's shooting 60% from the field and 50% from three. So he's one of those players that we all tend to struggle defending. That's a stretch five. A guy that can post, but also when he sets ball screens, he can pop and shoot threes. And so that always gives any team a problem, gives us a problem. And so we're obviously going to have to work on that. I do think Mladen, matches up pretty well with him size-wise. I mean, Mladen's just as big as he is, but, this kid's a little bit more versatile in his game offensively. And so we're going to have to be prepared to guard him inside and out, and then try to take the game at him, too, and get him maybe into some foul trouble.
I'm intrigued by your mentioning that he shoots threes and all this because we both remember Jordy Kuiper from last year's SoCon final. And he's the guy he can't beat. Wait a minute. Hold on. Hey, the Southern Conference is being ranked very highly by the people in the know. I'm looking at teamrankings.com. And you're not using RPI anymore. It's something called NET, but they've got the Southern Conference ranked number 12 in the country, and they've actually been ranked as high as number 10. Now, do you think that the SoCon can keep that sort of a conference rating for the rest of the year, Steve Forbes?
Well, here's the problem. The reason why it's high now is because we're playing non-conference games against higher net opponents, and and winning. And when you do that, that's when you do increase the profile of your program and the profile of your league. The issue will be when we get into the conference play is how we can maintain it. The problem in that is that sometimes the lower half of the league hurts the upper half. Now, this year the lower half, because if there is a lower, however you say that, is playing particularly well. Citadel went to James Madison and got a really good road win. VMI is winning games. VMI actually made 19 threes at Kentucky the other night. Bubba Parham had 35 points, even though it was a loss. Sanford's won some road games. It's the league is definitely up. And a lot of people are talking, obviously, about Villanova. Furman going to Villanova and Loyola winning, and those are really good wins. But I caution that a little bit, and I told my team this the other day that take nothing away from Furman's win, but Wofford went to Carolina last year and beat the number one ranked team in the country and lost and finished fourth in our league. And so, these things are nice, but you got to win the league. You got to play well in league play. And so, but I do think it's what we need. You and I have had this discussion before, is that we need to win high-profile games in the non-conference to raise the profile of our league, and right now we're doing that, and that's the reason why I was disappointed we lost it. Creighton ends up winning the Cayman Island Classic. They beat Clemson in the finals the night before last, and Georgia State finished third, and they beat Georgia by almost 30. And so those would have been two really marquee good wins for our program. How we could, if we could have finished them off.
Yeah, I know ETSU is ranked, I think, in the NET ratings. Like I said, it's very early. I think it's 148. You're ahead of Cincinnati, but Georgia Southern is actually number 2, which of course will be the next opponent for ETSU after North Dakota State. So, you said we need high-profile victories. Admittedly, you're playing a Big Ten team on the road, Illinois, coming up in next month. But could Georgia Southern be that sort of high-profile team, or is it just? Yeah. Okay.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's why I think it's important for really good mid-major teams to schedule other really good mid-major teams. And, Georgia Southern's having a heck of a year. They won their tournament they were just in, and they were picked second in the league behind Georgia State. I knew, heading into the season, I knew this was going to be a really hard road game. start to play each other more and more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when we do that, well, like you said, Georgia Southern's got a 2-net, and that helps everybody. You know, and so that's kind of that's been my philosophy is, you know, to try to continue to schedule these games. The hard part has been getting them at home. You know, we can get them on the road. I mean, I can get road games any day, but it's the home games that make it hard.
Sure. I'm looking forward to and thanks for your help, by the way, with Mark Adams and talk, because I know he's going to help you with scheduling and so many mid-majors going forth and all this. And yeah, I mean, I can recall the days, I mean, when Virginia Commonwealth would come in to Johnson City, for instance, and that was considered to be, you know, a pretty big game, that sort of thing. So,
where that's changed is I've tried to schedule since I've been here, and I don't think most fans wouldn't understand this, but Virginia Commonwealth, with Will Wade a year ago, or a couple years ago, had spent $500,000 buying home games. Think about that, $500,000.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a dime for that. So the point is they're buying home games to win, and then only going on the road to a neutral site or a somebody that our TV type game, and getting them to come here, they basically just laugh at me, you know, and so it's frustrating because, yes, I think playing VCU would be a great game for us. It'd be a great game for our fans. I like that game, but I can't get them to play, and I understand. I mean, everybody has their own scheduling philosophy, and their philosophy is what they decide it is, and I can't disparage them for that.
You're inspiring me to go through my archives and get my interview with Les Robinson up on YouTube, where he explains how all the things that had to happen for him to get North Carolina State to come to Johnson City. And by the time the game was played, he was coaching North Carolina State. So kind of an interesting thing. May have been the biggest.
I remember we won the game, and some of it was due to a timeout called late in the game, and I think NC State, they had a timeout, but they brought their players out on the floor, and they didn't get their floor cleaned up, and they came down and slipped on the floor and turned it over.
That's exactly what happened. It was the water bottle, I think it was Corciani, forget it was either Corciani, Rodney Monroe. It was the great backcourt they had at the time.
Right.
And one of them slipped on the floor. And that was the turnover that won the game for ETSU. And I think in a lot of ways, you could also point out if there's one time where the NC State Wolfpack started to go into a demise, because they were a powerhouse throughout the 80s with Valvano and Norm Sloan before that. You could actually point to that incident as this is when it started to get bad for NC State. There was one point.
That team also had Tom Gugliotta on the team, too. I mean, that was a very talented team and a heck of a win for Bucks.
Yeah, that was when you also knew that ETSU was about ready to become nationally ranked, that there was something special going on in Johnson City back then. I still think it might have been the biggest sporting event ever played in Johnson City. You can debate that, but that would be my selection. Anyway, Steve Forbes is going to have a pretty big game against North Dakota State, at least I think so, at 4. And then the football team will take on Jacksonville State in the postseason for the first time in 22 years, or you could say 10 seasons if you prefer. Steve Forbes, thanks for joining us here on Tri-City Sports Now. Looking forward to the game on Saturday, and of course, then December when a schedule really starts picking up. We'll be back after this.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Can you do